All right. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. This is our spring regular quarterly meeting for the Mount Carmel Neighborhood Association. Our last meeting was in February, and I think that's kind of the cadence that we'll stay with here going forward. The last meeting we had was the first one in over a year, or just about a year after we'd gotten back from, after shutdown and all that fun stuff. So still obviously going through some of that, but light at the end of the tunnel here, and looking forward to getting back to some in-person meetings as well in the not too distant future, and we'll be to try to arrange that, but we'll sort of go with the flow and figure out what. And it's very possible we might do some kind of online combination of online and in person. I think it's helpful to record these as well, and to put them on our YouTube channel, and for those who can't attend, to be able to view those. So anyway, just real quick, going back over what we talked about in the last meeting, we went through some of the Mount Carmel Neighborhood Association vision and leadership positions. Still going to be doing some recruiting here for additional co-chairs and volunteers, which I'll talk about. We had the developer for Sequoia Station development come out, and so we'll continue to track issues with that. Residential design guidelines, we did a brief update on, and in fact, let's see, I have an update here as well. Sorry, too many devices trying to get this to, there we go. So a draft of the guidelines were published just this month, and a public hearing was scheduled for the Planning Commission last week. But it was continued to another date, which is to be determined. So we'll notify the group again when that comes up. But the design guidelines, just as a refresher, are the Planning and Design Commission to adopt a design guidelines for residential homes, building guidelines. So it does things, architectural kinds of guidelines. And so there will be more room for public comment. But you guys should check out the guidelines, the draft that's been published. It's pretty comprehensive and pretty neat. In fact, it's been a couple of years now in the making, and I think will serve the neighborhood well. Hopkins traffic calming we discussed last time, and there's been some updates there, which we'll get into further down the program. Our attendance boundaries we talked about, and very glad to see that kids are back in school by and large in Redwood City School District here, and also Sequoia, and not all schools are back, of course, in full time. I have a kindergartner who's doing still part time, but it's looking like in the fall that we'll be back to a normal schedule for most, if not all, kids. Fingers crossed. We talked about ADU height and size restrictions. Our solid waste collection rate increase, community wellness and crisis response pilot program, and support for our local neighborhood businesses here. So that's just some grounding from what we talked about 3 months ago. Getting into tonight's stuff, the first thing I have here is a pitch for new leadership. Again, I'll say first and foremost that I am extremely grateful for to be able to bring on some new coordinators and volunteers who have been helping out. Chuck Riley, my neighbor from down the street, who many of you might recognize as our resident online bomb thrower, self-described bomb thrower in many cases, but he's also extremely passionate about the neighborhood. And we are going to be doing some additional local business outreach. There's a number of businesses and proposed businesses that are coming into the neighborhood specifically, and our neighborhood boundaries also include part of that strip along El Camino, and so to be able to engage with them, run promotions, help to support their businesses. There's a lot of businesses that have been affected by the shutdowns and things of the last year, so to be able to engage with them more is really part of our core mission here. So thanks to Chuck for that. Alistair Jeffs, who has reached out and graciously started putting together our neighborhood newsletter, which is now running bi-weekly and is really focused on events and things that are very specific to our specific neighborhood. So please reach out to him if you have other things that go on that you would like to have included in that in that newsletter. It's tough to compile all that stuff, and so if people have things that they would like to contribute, that'd be great if they could reach out. So we'll add his email address here in the end. And Rena Weiner, who's helping with our Safe Routes to School program, she's been liaising with the newly reinvigorated Safe Routes to School, and she's going to do a little presentation tonight on that. She's been extremely proactive there. So much thanks to her. We need help with other coordinator kinds of positions as well, other volunteers, people. If you have something specific to the neighborhood that you're passionate about, please get in touch, and we can, if you want to focus on something for the neighborhood, that would be fantastic. And then co-chairs. So I've been doing some outreach, trying to bring on 2 more, hopefully, co-chairs to help with this process. And so far, have had some good conversations and things, but haven't found anyone who wants to come join me full time here, But if you guys have people who are in your network, or you have other clubs, churches, social groups, things that you'd like to help me solicit for new co-chairs, that would be fantastic. You don't have to do it yourself. You can just help me to do some recruiting. That would really be appreciated. And then let's see. So the next part of our program here is a forum with the fire department. Our fire department has graciously offered to come out and talk about some fire safety and preparedness stuff. And we have Lucas here with us tonight to do that. But right before we jump into that, I know that we have Janelle Gibson from Healthy Cities Tutoring, who needs to leave early, and she wanted to tell us about some volunteer opportunities. So I'm going to turn it over to her for 2 minutes, and she's going to give us an update, and then we'll get on with the rest of the program. So let me, Janelle, I forget, do you have a presentation here that you?
Yeah, just 3 slides.
Great. Let me open it up for you. Need to find your, there we go.
Are you trying to stop share?
I am just trying to make Janelle a host. Amanda, are you still there?
Yes, I am. You can't make her a co-host? Well, I'll do it. Got it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, you guys. I know that you've seen this before, a couple of you, my presentation, so I'll make it very quick. Here we go. Okay, so I'm Janelle Gibson. I'm a program coordinator for Healthy Cities Tutoring. This is our 25th year as a volunteer tutoring organization that recruits and matches community members with school children, kindergarten through 8th grade, who need a little extra help and encouragement with their schoolwork. We place tutors in all 9 San Carlos schools and several Redwood City.
Janelle, sorry, yeah. we can see your screen, but not the presentation.
Oh my goodness, I just shared it. Okay, sorry. Huh. Let me go back.
Press X.
Can you see it now? No?
No.
Oh,
Press X. Press X.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm trying to find. Yeah, I should be able to just hit presentation, and I did share the screen. I don't know what's going on. I could just talk. Sorry. I don't know where X is.
Just the,
Huh.
you've got two screens. So if you press X, it'll swap the screens.
I did.
Oh, all
You
right.
can also just drag it to the left. I think you were trying to bring it.
Can you see it there? Okay, let's try that. Sorry, you guys. Now do you see it?
No.
It came, the edge of it came onto the screen for just a second. So if you were dragging it,
Let
then
me see if I can move it over here. Let me see if this works.
Yep.
Is that better? That is the strangest thing. Okay, sorry. So I'm going to try to go where I left off. We place tutors in all 9 San Carlos schools and several schools in Redwood City, which are Clifford, Connect, Henry Ford, Kennedy, Next Year, Orion. We support over 500 students annually and are always looking for volunteers who can spend 30 to 45 minutes once a week working with a student in person, usually at the school library or online helping with homework. And this year, during the pandemic, all our tutors had to do their sessions on Zoom, of course, like the rest of the world. We're looking forward to getting back on campus and tutoring in person. We offer training and you do not need any previous tutor experience. You just need a willingness to help and take an interest in a student. Simple online application, background check via fingerprints, and TB clearance are all that is needed. And I will put some of this information, I'll give it to Cam and he could send it to you, the website. Please tell your family and friends and high school students or retired neighbors to check us out. We'll be offering new tutor orientation training next September through November. You can view our previous training or events on our website to see if this might be a good fit for you. And that's it, short and sweet. So we really do need tutors in Redwood City. So I would love it if you could spread the word. And that's it.
thanks so much, Janelle. Any questions for Janelle about the program?
I'm going to put my information in the chat and you guys can cut and paste it and put it in your notes if you like, okay?
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, Firefighter Golden, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have a presentation or anything like that, or would you prefer to just
no. So
That's great.
from my understanding, yeah, I was hopefully trying to keep this pretty concise. I know everybody's time is valuable these days. First, I'd like to say thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here and just to be able to get more involved, and hopefully pretty soon we'll be able to do these more in person. We're coming out of that as a department. We're working on trying to get back to a lot more in-person things like going to schools and really getting re-involved with the community, because we just haven't had that for a while now. So we're hoping to improve that. And this is a good forum for us to really try and expand that. So thank you for having me and us. So I was just going to touch a little bit on home fire safety, a little bit of wildfire awareness, just community preparedness as a whole. We're also getting a new chief in. Chief Iverson is actually going to start here early this coming June. And just a little bit of a touch, and then follow that up with some questions and answers. Is whatever anybody would like to ask, I can do my best to either point you in the right direction or get you an answer now at least. So just touching on home fire safety at least, we have, I mean, historically, lately, there have been very dry conditions. And I mean, we've had large fires in our backyard lately. So kind of hitting home on what we call wildland urban interface. And for the most part, it's a little more up in the hills for us where there's a lot of brush, bigger parks. It's a lot tougher to really combat wildfires if they get throughout the canopy. So, and they're the underbrush and then the higher growth. So it's a lot easier for us to kind of plan ahead and just prevent that from ever occurring. So how that really applies with the home management parts is kind of identifying what your home is. And then some of the key factors that you can really do to prevent wildfires from really catching your home on fire and the surrounding area on fire. We are packed in pretty close in this area, but we do have some more spread out homes with a lot more, I guess, flammable materials around them pretty close to us. So if something does come in, we can do some smaller things. First, identifying what type of a home you have. If you have something like a wood shake roof, so if it's a flammable exterior part of your home, then you know that flying embers are more easily going to attach to your home and potentially catch it on fire. So we can do a lot of preventative things, and that's been a push for California, at least in the last couple of years. It's kind of getting away from those wood shake roofs, but also a lot more of the small stuff, just keeping yards maintained and any type of flammable materials like wood piles or brush, just kind of away from the home, getting some kind of a gap between the flammable materials in your yard, bushes, anything that's dry, and the home really helps with if a fire does come through and we have some kind of a crazy scenario like we did a few years ago in the past year where it's coming through more urban and actual neighborhoods. So when you have things that are flammable really close to, say, the eaves or trees that are growing into the side of your home, so if those do catch fire, it just kind of ladders up those into the home itself. So for the most part, what we really recommend to homeowners is just maintaining an upkeep of keeping a kind of a safe distance with flammable materials and trees, brush, as well as wood piles. And then say if you have propane tank or anything like that, not putting that directly under an eave, kind of separating that from the home. Those things that are easy to catch on fire, just keeping them away from the actual larger structure of the home. So we do a lot of preventative maintenance, and this goes into training as well as dealing with different neighborhoods who are in wildland urban interface areas, not specifically for you guys and where you're at, but other areas. We do a lot of preventative maintenance. Now there's a ton of area to cover, and these are pretty big programs. So it's kind of a difficult battle to win, to tell you the truth, but we just kind of get it out there and at least try and get more awareness on that end of it. But there's not too much you can do as a community right where you guys are at to help with the WUI part of that, and that's wildland urban interface. As far as community preparedness goes, really just knowing an escape route, and ideally at least two. So depending on the wind conditions, we generally have northwest winds. So we know that it's kind of come from the northwest. If it's getting into the neighborhoods, most likely it's going to be a wind-driven event. So if that does occur, then just kind of going more or less to the south and the east is a better direction to just kind of know those primary roads that are going to get you out, and basically going to a decently large area. A lot of the times that's big parking lots and commercial buildings, places that aren't necessarily ever going to burn. So just away from effectively anything that grows and that is flammable. So more or less the concrete downtown area is a lot better if we are going to have a wind-driven fire that's can be potentially very dangerous for us. But having at least two escape routes, whether you're driving or if it's really crazy and everybody else is driving, knowing which way you're going to walk out as well, or potentially run. But we don't anticipate that coming into the neighborhoods at all. It's just kind of things that are good to look out for. Let's see. And then one of the big things that's going to be changing with our department, we are getting a new chief. That's Chief Ray Iverson. He comes to us from San Mateo Consolidated. So just north of us, he's very familiar with the area. He's been working here at San Mateo Consolidated for the last 6 years and has a numerous amount of experience prior to that. I personally only had a small interaction with him so far, depending. It's difficult to say just because he hasn't come here and we haven't really formulated a plan. But the biggest hurdle that we're working with in the Redwood City Fire Department currently is staffing. We're trying to hire, and we've been kind of put on hold for about a year now with hiring. So he's very aware of that circumstance and that we are fairly stressed as a workforce. So we're looking forward to getting a new chief in and really reinvigorating, coming out of this COVID kind of all stop and re-engaging with the community here. So just on that topical part, if anybody does have any questions, please throw them my way. You can feel free to email myself, and my email is lgolden@redwoodcity.org, or send it through the chain, and we'll get responses to you in whatever way we can. So does anybody have any questions?
Do you have any events coming up to engage with the community?
So right now with our staffing levels so low, we've kind of put a pause on most of our events. We're still figuring out how everybody's going to react with vaccines, everything else. So effectively, we've kind of put an all stop on events at least. We normally have the Junior Fire Academy, toy drives, numerous events throughout the year, including pancake breakfast, all of those things. But right now we're still holding off on really doing anything in person. We are starting to bring back those communications for like visiting schools and doing fire awareness, but right now we don't have any on the books.
Okay, thank you.
Occasionally, there will be some kind of smoke or some kind of sign of fire coming from like up in the hills. I think there was one last fall that I remember specifically hiking in Edgewood, and it looked like up in the hills past the water district, there was some pretty significant smoke coming up there. It turned out to be a controlled burn, but what's the best way to report stuff that we see? I assume that you guys get a lot of, when something like that happens, you guys get a lot of calls or a lot of messages about it, but how can we sort of effectively communicate with you?
Yeah, in general, just using the 911 system, they kind of filter those things out. And a lot of the times, like you just mentioned, there are controlled burn days. So you can actually go on to specific sites and see whether or not it's a burn. But usually whenever it's a high suspicion or a very high degree or high risk for fire activity, those usually are not going to be controlled burn days. So if it's a hot day and you're concerned about it, that humidity is low, you've kind of looked at the news and it's a high risk for fire. Those are the days that we are very concerned. So just go through the normal 911 system if you do see smoke on those days.
Okay, thanks. And is it helpful for us to proactively put out, if there's a notice for controlled burn, is it helpful for us to, or does the city kind of broadcast that in some way ahead of time?
Yeah, for the most part. So we really don't want to recommend anybody gets into anything that is over their head. But if you ever see anything small, absolutely put it out if you can in a safe manner. Otherwise, go right to the 911 system. And then we have the proper steps to go through that. But our biggest recommendation is just make sure that you are safe. If you're in a situation where you think you can help put something out, absolutely do that, because preventing that is the best way to do it. But we don't recommend that because that's a liability concern, at least. Thanks.
And Jane has a question in the chat asking what to do with an old fire extinguisher.
So depending, if they're charged, so fire extinguishers, you usually want to replace about every year. So old fire extinguishers, if they are still charged, for the most part, if they're refillable, what we do recommend is there's numerous private companies, and we can't really recommend any specific private company, but they basically recharge them. And then those same companies are usually capable of disposing old ones that they're single use and haven't been used as well. Over time, they do have a tendency to work. We say after a year, just replace them or recharge them. They still will work a little bit after that, or oftentimes years after that, but that's just as far as they officially work.
I had a question, Lucas, about outdoor fire pits and summertime and the trees around here, and what can you tell us about neighbors with fire pits?
So having a controlled fire pit is absolutely okay. For the most part, if you are concerned, I would talk with that neighbor and just say, hey, we're concerned. But then kind of look at their situation. If they have a very controlled, say, brick fire pit that's has spacing around it with no other flammable materials, and there's trees that are not dangling down close to it, then that's a very safe way to enjoy having that backyard fire. So it's really effectively, it's making sure that there's nothing that's going to spread away from that, and then just basic good etiquette with more or less bonfires in the backyard, at least keeping them smaller and just contained. That's our recommendation. We still go on numerous calls every year. We call them smoke investigations, where we look for those. Basically, we're seeing smoke. It's been called in by multiple neighbors, and we eventually find out that it is just a backyard, completely legal fire pit. But we just knock on the door. Hey, we just wanted to make sure everything was okay. So it is pretty common. It's just using common sense with that and making sure it's not going to be able to spread. Oftentimes those embers will go up a good 5-10 feet.
Thank you.
And to piggyback on that question, what happens in that case if it's a like a no burn day, or a spare the air day, and you get that call?
Yeah, so we do get those calls, as long as, I mean, we're not going to crack down on anybody for barbecuing, anything like that. It is pretty common for those, say something like a grease fire. It's not intentional, anything like that. In that case, we come out, we respond, we kind of deal with that in person.
All right, any other questions? Going once? Thank you so much. Would you, let's see, I'll go ahead and send out your contact information again at the end of this. Yeah, really appreciate your time here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Next part of the agenda here. I'm actually going to pull. We have our new. We have our new community policing officer, Officer Otterson, here with us as well. And I had originally put that down in the neighborhood health and safety section, but I think I'm going to pull that up here since we've got him with us and ready to go, so we don't take up too much of his time either. And specifically, I had reached out to him, to Officer Otterson, asking about updates from some of the recent thefts and other property crimes that we had seen spike over the last few months, and just wanted to get some updates. I know the city, the police department, a lot of folks, other jurisdictions are working really hard to try to work on what's a really difficult issue for a lot of different reasons. So I thought it'd be good to get an update from them and see how things are going.
Yeah, great, thank you. Hello, everyone. So my name is Eric Otterson. I'm the new community police officer for the Redwood City Police Department. I just recently took over for Jesse Castro. So I actually got an opportunity. Cameron had sent me the interview he had done with Jesse back in March, in which he asked a series of questions about the rise in bike thefts and just thefts in general in your guys' area of Redwood City, and his responses. So I was kind of hoping to give just an update on that rather than go through the whole bit. So there is some good news. One of the restrictions that we were dealing with during COVID times is our ability to book people into jail. During the pandemic and up until just a few months ago, we were unable to book people on felony crimes, nonviolent felony crimes. So if you went out and stole an Escalade or a $10,000 bike and we managed to catch you, instead of taking you to jail, we would have written you a ticket and released you back onto the streets, because there was nothing else to do. That restriction has been lifted. And that includes warrants as well. So in the event that we don't necessarily catch the person at the time of the crime, but we figure out who they are, write the case, and then submit it for a warrant. A warrant gets issued by a judge. Even those during the pandemic, we couldn't book people on those. That restriction has been lifted as well, which helps. However, when I ran the numbers specifically for your neighborhood, theft, specifically theft of bicycles, is still going up. It looks like it's about, well, two different things. Vehicle thefts went down, but theft of property other than vehicles went up about 40%. And so I actually went through every case that we took in your guys' area of the city to kind of get an idea of what we were seeing in terms of what was being taken, how it was being taken, and what we could do to try to prevent it. And what I found was that it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's suspects going into unlocked vehicles, residents leaving their garage door open, and somebody going into their garage and taking their bikes, leaving unsecured bikes on roof racks on vehicles, packages being taken from front doorsteps, and then even catalytic converters are still being taken from vehicles. Most of those crimes, when I was reading through the report, can be prevented. Almost without fail, what we see when in terms of crime is they're mostly crimes of opportunity. The guys that are going out and stealing bikes and stealing change from your car or some valuable, a purse from your trunk, they're not rocket scientists. They're walking around and they're looking for dark areas, vehicles that are unlocked, where there's not really anybody around, and they're taking advantage of it. So what we're hoping is that with continued outreach, going to meetings, and I recently actually posted on our Redwood City PD website all the crime flyers that we have for all the tips that we have for these type crimes to kind of help residents get the word out of like the simple things you can do to prevent this from happening to you. Because it really is that simple. It sounds cliche, something as simple as like, hey, lock the door to your cars, but that's what we see. They're not using some advanced tool to defeat the lock on your car door. They're simply just opening it and getting into your vehicle. And with that as well, I'm actually currently working on getting that out on our social media as well, so that we can, that another way just to kind of reach out to communities that they can hopefully get these flyers, read them, take advantage of them, and prevent them from being a victim of these very preventable thefts. The next thing I want to kind of briefly touch on, and it wasn't really in your topic, but that you'd mentioned, Cameron, but the homeless encampments. Caltrans had a moratorium on doing cleanups during the entirety of COVID. It was a health and safety thing for their crews, and so they were simply not coming out. So we went almost an entire year with no cleanups. We've been meeting regularly with Caltrans, and as of 3 weeks ago, they recently conducted cleanups at Hazel and Linden, Shasta underneath Woodside, and Chestnut and Veterans. And myself and a representative from the city are meeting with them again this Friday to do hopefully a walkthrough of the rest of the encampments to try to get on some sort of like regular for both. I don't know if you guys have, one of the things that we're seeing in other neighborhoods is an increase in fireworks. And I just want to touch on that really quick before I open it up to questions. So there is a municipal code in the city of Redwood City can't be lighting off fireworks. However, it's extremely hard with the number of officers that we have for us to catch people in the act, because by the time they light off the firework, somebody calls it in, it gets routed to our dispatch sends an officer. By the time the officer gets there, most of the time nobody's around. We get to see an empty mortar shell. We are currently working with the fire department, as well as this increase in fireworks that we're seeing as we head into the 4th of July holiday, as well as adding additional patrols on the 4th of July with patrol vehicles that are specifically dedicated to breaking up people that are setting off fireworks and potentially taking some sort of enforcement action. With that, I will open it up to questions if there are any. It looks like Adrian has a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I think I read in the local paper that EPA is, I think it was EPA, they're doing fireworks enforcement by using unmarked cars that they basically go sit in problem areas. They have officers just go sit in those cars and stealthily move around. And I don't know what their success rate has been. I know they have a shot spotter over there and stuff, but obviously whatever, you know, as you pointed out, it's extremely difficult to catch people in the act. And my understanding is there's no citation or really anything that PD can do unless an officer witnesses it. So I'm wondering if there's any budget or resources or ideas about doing similar stakeouts vehicles too, because I think my sense is that it's a lot of times it's the same party of people in certain areas that are doing this night after night. So I think there's a probability of being able to focus on you know, repeat offenders and catch them in the act.
Yeah, absolutely. That is something that we have done in the past, especially as we get closer to the holiday. I know specifically on July 4th, we have both marked and unmarked vehicles driving around, including our undercover street crimes team that go out and actively look for people setting off fireworks. At the end of the day, it does come down to resources, and similar to the fire department, we are pretty tight on staffing right now, and simply staffing our normal patrol is becoming more and more of an issue, but definitely something to keep in mind that I will bring up as a possible solution, because you are absolutely right. I haven't, like I said before, I haven't received complaints specifically from the Mount Carmel neighborhood. I know it's only a matter of time before I do. Most of the complaints I'm getting are from more southern Redwood City, more south of Woodside Road. And that's a great suggestion to have, because it is specifically coming from a particular area. So thank you.
Well, just a quick follow-up comment is I'm speaking for myself, and I think probably a lot of others. It's sort of a learned helplessness. We learn over time that calling it in or reporting is futile. So it's kind of a, you know, I don't know. Kind of so I think that's part of the issue. But if there's a recurring problem, and if there's stats where you guys are tracking that there's a cluster and it's ongoing, and you know, 3-4 nights a week, it's in the same general area, then that might be an opportunity at night when it's slow. You know, 4th of July is crazy, so I can imagine you're running around like, you know, the proverbial chickens with your heads cut off. But there could be opportunities to focus in on some, you know, problem areas, because what's happened over the years is that the fireworks season, if you will, is extending further out prior to the 4th of July and after it. And so there's a lot more sporadic stuff happening late at night that's really bugging people, because people don't expect it or tolerate it as much when you get further away from the 4th. Kind of everybody or more people look the other way on the day of.
Right. So to as a follow-up to that, to the community members that have reached out to me directly, I have directed officers on patrol during the time of day and the beat that they're describing. I have directed them to go over there and do extra patrol checks. So what I would ask of you is, and everybody on this meeting, is to do the same. You're absolutely right when you say that it's calling it in is somewhat futile. I don't want to tell somebody not to call the police if it's, because that's what we're here for. However, it's much more helpful if it's kind of like a recurring thing, like you're saying. So, one of the, if you can give me like a street and a time of day, that's something that
I think we lost Officer Eric's connection here. Officer Otterson, if you're still on, maybe try resetting your connection or something like that. I think we have you frozen here. Give him another second to see if it sorts itself out. Okay, well, what I'll do is, I know that we have some questions in the chat directed to Officer Otterson as well. If he winds up coming back on, we can go through those questions again. Otherwise, I will forward on those questions to him, and we'll post something to the group very soon. So thanks to him. Sorry for the technical difficulties here. If there are other questions that I can pass along to the officer, please put them in the chat or email me or him directly, and we can address those too. I will back to the agenda here and see if we've done some shuffling around. So we'll see if we can get back to it here. So we've gone through our MCNA business. We've had our fire department presentation. Let's see. So we have some updates and new business here. Specifically the Redwood City General Plan housing element. So I know that we posted about a workshop that was happening 2 weeks ago now, I guess, and I wasn't able to attend myself, but I understand that it was it went on, and there will be some more upcoming workshops as well. They have not been scheduled yet, but this is part of our general plan. I guess every 10 years, the general plan is required to be updated by the city. And in the process of that, they do a bunch of community outreach and try to get feedback and ideas from the community. This is Cliff, who's saying, yes, we are currently working with the city to address the speed. Oh, sorry. Officer Otterson has rejoined here. So let me put that on hold again, and we'll get back to the officer here in just a second.
Sorry about that, everyone. I think I lost my internet connection, but I am back up. I'm sorry. I was trying to finish answering that question, but I know we're getting close on time. So unless there's anything else.
I think you cut out right when you were saying that it was a bit futile sometimes to call, but that we should make sure to call it in if there are repeat offenses or something that we can pinpoint, like a time and location. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, and specifically, I would say you could even reach out to me. I can put my email and direct phone line into the chat. And and if you, like I said, yeah, if you can kind of pinpoint like a recurring incident, I can direct patrol to kind of go to that area. But random fireworks, I'm not going to tell you not to call, but it is difficult for us to try to catch people in the act in that event.
Got it. Well, thank you for that. We've got a few questions in the chat here that I'll read off. Let's see. Susan, first Jane says, regarding some of the property thefts, have any of the robbers been caught and booked?
Yes. I don't know how closely you guys follow social media or Nixle, but we had a homeowner that caught, it was 4 people that were attempting to steal his bike. He then attempted to follow them to try to confront them, and one of them ended up pulling a gun, and so he doubled back to his house and called 911. And so we were able to get out there pretty quickly, and then we arrested, I think it was at least one of the subjects, if not 2, and then recovered the firearm as well. I can tell you that he's a regular. He has a long history of kind of more petty type crimes. I can't, oftentimes, unless there's video of previous thefts, I can't tell you that it was him, but I can tell you that people that steal bikes don't just steal one bike. They steal them and then they have a way of kind of turning them over and selling them. So my hope is that at least somewhat kind of helps with the problem.
Thanks. Then Susan says that they, meaning some of the folks who are committing these property crimes, broke the side windows on 5 cars in our block one day. Cars were locked. As far as I know, none of the cars had anything in them to steal. And an officer did come and take a report, but no idea if they had any luck catching the thieves.
Yeah. So, oh, good.
No, that's it. I think any comment on that would be helpful.
So I can tell you from my experience, whenever we see, there's a difference between breaking into a car and stealing someone's valuables and walking down the street and breaking 5 car windows. To us, generally the difference is there's some sort of mental health or substance abuse problem on. They have a different motivation. So the person, or it's kids messing around. So the type of person that's going to go down the street and break 5 car windows, they're doing it simply just to break car windows. Like I said, in general, window smashes on cars to get access to property, that's rare unless they can actually see something of value inside, because they're not going to risk making all the noise and potentially attracting a call to the police if they can just move on to the next car that has an open door. So something like that, I'd be curious where that happened, because generally a crime like that is going to be closer to, I would say, like El Camino Real, where you get kind of more like that transient population that will kind of drift off and just, randomly select vehicles to vandalize.
Susan adds that it was 400 block of Duane.
400 block of Duane. Okay.
Across from McKinley.
Gotcha.
Okay, let's see. Then a couple of comments here from Alistair and Cliff, and got another comment, I think, in here as well, regarding speeding. And the main, let me see if I can summarize here. Concerns about speeding in the neighborhood. Neighbor who does it every single day. There are there seems to be some continued speeding even on the safe, slow streets that are going on. Thoughts in general on speeding and traffic issues in the neighborhood? So
during the pandemic, we were on somewhat of a, we were being restricted as officers in terms of making contacts with people proactively. So we tried to limit traffic stops to avoid potential exposure from us to citizens and vice versa. As recently as a couple months ago, those restrictions have been lifted. So I can tell you, I ran the numbers specifically, not for your neighborhood, but for Redwood City in general. And I compared the first 5 months of 2021 to the last 5 months of 2020, just because we're only 5 months in, and traffic citations are up 50%. So this may be a relic of a period of time where they didn't see traffic officers out there making stops or patrol officers going out there and making traffic stops. And so people were thinking that, hey, if I can get away with it essentially. The hope is that as we continue to increase enforcement, that it will decrease issues like speeding. However, again, if it's a random car that you've never seen before comes speeding down your street and you call it in, again, depending on, calls get triaged, it may take a few minutes for an officer to get there. However, if it's something that's recurring, it's like, hey, there's a car, it's this blue sedan every day at 9 a.m. He's driving into work and he comes flying down my street. We have the My Redwood City app. And I don't know how familiar you are with it, but you can actually make specific requests on there for increased traffic enforcement. Those requests go directly to our traffic lieutenant, and he can direct a motor officer to that location for increased enforcement. You can do that if it's just random cars. You just feel like, hey, we need some more traffic enforcement as well. So, if you feel like you live on a street and people just keep flying down, oftentimes it only takes a few tickets before people get, the word gets out like, hey, don't go speeding down, Jefferson, don't go speeding down, Kenley Street.
Okay, thanks. Do you know specifically what's happening with the Safe Slow Streets program? Is that going to be continued for a while?
I don't. That's actually a city program. The police department, I don't believe we have any control over that. So I'm really not sure.
Got it. Okay, well, I really appreciate your time. If there are other questions for Officer Otterson or police department, you can send them to me or directly to him. I think we have your contact information here as well. And congratulations on the new position, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope to have you back out again for future meetings. All right, moving back to our program here. As I was saying just a minute ago, the housing element, there will be more opportunities to get involved with that, so stay tuned. I know that the city is going to be doing a lot of outreach on what our general plan looks like on several elements. The housing element is just one part of that, but the first part that they've launched into. An update from the Veterans Memorial Senior Center and YMCA at Red Morton, just from Monday night at the City Council meeting. The bond measure has been approved, and phase one, the Senior Center portion, phase two will be the phase one, the Senior Center will break ground in July, and expected completion is 24 months. So they're ready to go on that. They realize it's been 11 years since they first kicked off the program. So looking forward to getting some shovels in the ground, it sounds like. Phase two would be the YMCA portion, and that'll happen after the phase one portion is completed, and that's all privately funded by the YMCA. Let's see, transportation and infrastructure, the Hopkins, Hopkins traffic calming, that design completed, the community feedback and everything has been taken into account. The transportation department is going through a design process right now that's supposed to be completed in June, and they're targeting to have that to the City Council to approve the design and have the project out to bid in City Council's July meeting. So stay tuned I think there will be more opportunity for public comment in the in both the Transportation Commission and also at the City Council meeting. Jefferson and Cleveland crossing that's been under repair for quite a while now. The transportation department is working with PG&E to get the power services installed there. And the pavement work will come in after that. The expected completion date is around late June, so about another month of work in that area. And I've seen crossing guards and officers and increased presence out there helping, especially I know it's a school crossing, so have been appreciative to see some additional presence out there. I've also been told that there is a Jefferson pavement project in the works. So summer repaving from El Camino to Farm Hill to do pavement, just regular pavement work. And they'll repair the damaged pavement sections and expected to close 1 to 2 lanes at a time. Typical work hours are 8 to 4, and they expect to be working on it for just a week, but there will be more information forthcoming about that. We also got a presentation at the Neighborhood Association's leadership meeting from the sidewalks program. They're looking at revamping the sidewalks program a bit, and they wanted to just remind residents that there is a sidewalks program. The city does will do grinding of sidewalks. Actually, 1 second here. See if I can share this. I have 2 or 3 slides. Oh, that's okay. I think we're slightly behind on schedule here, but if you call it in or use the My Redwood City app to flag specific tripping hazards or areas where a sidewalk is uneven, the city will come out and assess whether it's eligible for grinding down or repaving, smoothing over, and that's something the city will take care of. Free of charge. They also still have the 50/50 program, which I myself have taken advantage of, where they have the city approved contractor will come out to split, and the city will split the cost for full sidewalk repairs. And that's the portion that they're also reconsidering right now, basically to see if there are changes they can make to make it more accessible. So they're talking about a sliding scale. So it might be a 70-30 program, dependent on income. They're looking at other ways to modify that to increase usage of the program and make it more accessible for all residents. And then finally, Vision Zero. So there's a new Transportation Department initiative, Vision Zero, and I'm just going to read from Malahat from the Transportation Department here. It says, Vision Zero is an approach that started in Northern Europe, and many cities around the world are following this approach. Vision Zero is a comprehensive and multidisciplinary approach to eliminate the traffic-related fatalities and severe injuries, and to create safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all. This is a program that that Redwood City Transportation is just kicking off and starting to get some community feedback on. And they've asked, please let me know if you need more information. They're creating a specific web page for the project and a dedicated email address for public communication, and they will start the outreach soon and hope to see, hope that they can engage more with community members. And they'd love to hear from different community groups about their bicycling and walking needs in particular. And that is a good segue and transition into our next portion of the program, which is talking about our safe routes to school. And I had started talking to the city a little bit about safe routes to school and the school district as well. I have a daughter who's a kindergartner who's at the what was the old John Gill campus is now the Orion and Mandarin Immersion Program campus. But as the schools have changed around, obviously with the especially Redwood City elementary schools, the routes that kids are going to be taking to schools have also shifted a lot. And so figuring out how kids are going to get from our neighborhood to the different schools that they're going to via bike, car, walking, skating, whatever it is going to need to be rethought a little bit. And so I am very excited that Marina reached out and said that it was something that she was also passionate about and would like to get involved with. And she has been going to a number of the meetings and excited to have her share both updates from what that Safe Routes to School program has been doing, which touches on some of the Vision Zero as well. And then also opportunities for other residents, neighbors to get involved. So I will make her, Marina, are you a presenter already here?
I can present if that's.
Yes, let me. Sorry, I just lost you.
Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you, yes. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Let me know if you see my screen.
We've got it, thank you.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Marina Wiener, and I recently started volunteering for this for the Safe Route to School program. So, according to the San Mateo County survey that was done before COVID started, actually the Redwood City is a hotspot for the collisions involving people walking or biking near elementary schools. So 2 out of 5 top schools in high poverty areas with this kind of a collisions are in Redwood City. So the initiative is aimed to initiate safe transportation in Redwood City, support safe transportation efforts, and we also seek equitable and collaborative effort to advance community health and wellness, which pretty much would mean that more walking and biking to schools instead of driving. If you look at the map of Mount Carmel, and there we have a number of both private and public schools located within the boundaries or immediately just adjacent to the boundaries of the Mount Carmel. But our newly assigned neighborhood school, which is Clifford Elementary, is about 1.5 miles away on average from Mount Carmel, which is not considered not walkable. And even if you ever biked or walked there, it's not necessarily bikeable either. It's there is a dear need in making this school accessible for our children other ways than just driving them to school. So the initiative tries to use different tactics and strategies to make it safer for children to bike or walk to school. And that involves actually creating routes for that the parents and the children can use. To create the routes, they need to conduct audits, walking and biking audits, conduct surveys, families, that ultimately results in recommendations and the walking and biking maps to local schools. The initiative also aims to increase volunteering capacity for people to participate in a good initiative like walking school bus where kids are being escorted to school by different adults, and also mitigation of the morning traffic around the schools. We'll also look at how to increase overall knowledge and promote healthy methods of transportations by hosting educational programs and encouraging schools to do so as well. There is a pretty tight collaboration, I think, since this was kind of kicked off again post-COVID in preparation for the kids returning to school in person. The initiative, this Redwood City 2020, was involving the county and the city engineering departments, transportation departments, law enforcement, as well as the school district and the schools themselves, and a broad selection of the community volunteers. Nevertheless, there's more volunteers needed, and there's several opportunities to be involved. I mean, if you're a parent or generally interested, there's walking and biking audits that are needed, again, because our maps have changed, as I showed earlier, due to the redistricting and just COVID changed a lot. So we need new maps, so they need to be updated. So those people who are willing to participate, please sign up. There is an email to sign up for the audit participation, as well as we need more representation from our private schools. And those were not as directly involved, and so there is an outreach to involve people who are from Redeemer or from the outlet of Mount Carmel schools to join the initiative because they would benefit from this approach. They would also be able to benefit from the overall outputs of this program. And finally, I just wanted to bring to your attention that the Vision Zero that is being kicked off by the city is very important because it can set up a broader framework for the Safe Routes to School to Thrive by supporting bigger infrastructure investments like safer biking lanes and pedestrian lanes. So if those of you who not necessarily I would say have immediate stake in this Safe Route to School program, but still concerned about the biking safety, please get engaged with this program that Cam just communicated about and provide your community feedback. That would also be very, very useful for us. So thank you very much.
If I may, I'd like to interject at this point and dovetail into what she talked about. This is Cliff Shook. I live on Hudson Street, and we are in the process of trying to slow traffic on Hudson Street, which has two schools, as you know, just within a block, Mount Carmel, and then Redeemer Lutheran Church School. And we had the city do a survey about the end of January, and we found 24,000 cars a week go down Hudson Street. That's pandemic traffic. And of those cars, 70% were speeding, going over the speed limit. And so we're working with them to, incidentally, that's 1.2 million cars a year, 885,000 cars a year speeding down Hudson Street. So we're working with the city to implement some traffic calming measures along the 5 blocks from Jefferson to Hopkins, and also have them put a pedestrian flashing beacon at the Catherine and Hudson intersection. Because a lot of kids use that to go to school, either to Redeemer or Mount Carmel, and for that fact, probably Sequoia and the other schools.
Yeah, thank you.
Cliff, thanks for the updates and your message as well. Sorry, Marina, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I just was wondering if there's any other inputs from the other folks on the call.
I saw a hand earlier from Adrian. Was that just left over from before?
Yep, that was left over. My comment, since you're speaking with me, is my brother and I never got rides to school. We were raised by German parents that believed, just like they had to do, that, you know, from kindergarten on, you're pretty self-sufficient. That was growing up in Menlo Park neighborhood, not unlike Mount Carmel. So we walked to school starting from kindergarten on, and eventually rode our bikes and took buses and trains and things like that. But I would say that Clifford, is the school I'm thinking of, is easily within biking distance of all of Mount Carmel. And I'm particularly disappointed. I live on Grand, and I'm disappointed to see that parents on my street are literally driving 2-3 blocks down to the Redeemer and driving their kids to and from school, which is just mind-blowing to me. So I think that I really support the Safe Routes to School movement, and I think that people really need to encourage their kids, or maybe model being able to walk places, you know. So that would be my little editorial comment.
Cliff, is there something that we can do to incorporate what you've already started with the city into the Safe Routes? I think you're still muted there.
Yeah, there I am. Okay, sorry. Yeah, well, I want to get people's awareness to what we're trying to do on Hudson Street, because it is a dangerous situation. I mean, me personally, I've almost been hit twice in the last couple of months trying to cross the street. And you see cars not stop at James and Hudson. As a matter of fact, a few months ago, I saw a pickup truck go through James Street at 50 miles an hour. It is just plain insanity on the street. So at this point, raise awareness and get people to support the funding for the traffic calming on Hudson Street when it comes up in the budget for the next fiscal year. They're currently designing speed humps for Hudson Street. And the last major step is to get the funding as part of the traffic calming budget line item.
Got it. Thank you.
There already is a speed hump at Redeemer, I believe, but I wholeheartedly support more speed humps. Menlo Park has used them quite effectively around certain schools, and that seems entirely appropriate between, you know, Whipple and Jefferson, or really wherever they're needed, because they can be tuned to any particular speed, and you know, such that going much faster than that speed results in a very rough ride. So I think that's really effective. Police can't you know, be everywhere as often as they would need to be, I think, to, you know, consistently control those things. So speed humps are, in some countries, they call them the sleeping policeman. I think down in Brazil, they call them sleeping policemen. So I think that's a great idea, and I would support us pitching in our voices of support for speed humps wherever they seem appropriate.
Yeah, I'm aware of the one on near Redeemer. It's kind of a very gentle speed hump. We're looking for something more aggressive to, you know, bring the speeds down to the 20-25 mile an hour average that should be on Hudson Street. I know right now they were reviewing them with the fire department, because of course the fire department has concerns over how fast their trucks can go, and I really haven't gotten any feedback from the city on what they're planning now. I did incidentally send an email to Chief, is it Pucci, who's on his way out, but he said he'd look into it, but I have not heard back from him as of this point.
That's a problem in this country, that fire departments, you know, I'm connected with the pedestrian walkable cities movement and urban design, you know, people that are thinking about how to make cities better, and read a lot of papers and think pieces on that. And in the United States, fire departments often sabotage a lot of street calming programs with the argument that they need to respond as fast as possible. And there's some good work where people really are showing that the speed humps, the additional safety is really saving more lives than potentially might theoretically be lost by a few seconds time loss on a fire truck response. You know, because that speed hump not being there and having a speeding problem such as you're describing is endangering, you know, people of all ages all the time. And so there is a trade-off there, and you know, I think there's an argument to be made that speed humps, even if they do slow down fire response a few seconds, can be supported mathematically.
Well, that's where we are right now, is trying to see what the city comes up with in terms of design after they reviewed it with the fire department, and then see if we think it's going to be effective at slowing traffic.
Alistair, did you have a comment on that as well?
Yeah, I was just wondering, you know, is the city considering letting people park on Hudson? It feels like, you know, when you drive down Hudson, there's literally, you know, nothing on the side of the road. So I think it does encourage people to drive.
Well, many blocks of Hudson have restricted parking, and it's because I think there was a thoroughfare, and there are certain people that think that just encourages speeding.
Right. Yeah, I think it does. I think it definitely.
Yeah, and you know, if you look northbound from James Street towards Hopkins, it looks like a racetrack and wide open. But you know, first things first, you know, we get speed humps and we get the pedestrian flashing beacon at Catherine.
Yeah.
That's a good step.
Yeah, I had a question for Marina about the safe schools route, and you know, I am a proponent of walking to school and biking to school as I did when I was growing up. Is the vision there to be, you know, rather than necessarily escorts and all of that, but pathing or some sort of signage or guidance on the roads themselves to give people, you know, some direction as to how they can do it? I mean, the biggest challenge between our neighborhood and Clifford is really that intersection of Edgewood and Alameda de las Pulgas in my mind. So I'm just wondering, like, is there vision about how one could bike or ride to school and what they would use as guidance for that?
Well, it's a multi-layer, like if you think it's a toolbox, right? Like one element is providing the instructions, like those maps, right? And communicating the maps to the parents and caregivers and children themselves. But the other element is what can be done temporary, like something that was done on Hudson, right? Just like temporary barriers, something that we can slow the traffic and make it safer fast without big investments or lengthy construction work. And the third element is actually soliciting funding from both city and the county, because actually the county has some programs that dedicate to safer biking and safer walking, and layering those three elements like education, temporary measures, as well as the more permanent infrastructure investments into ultimately making it possible to bike at this point. It's not a walkable destination. I walked it myself multiple times. It's really scary, even for adult. There is no sidewalk aside Alameda and to get to Clifford. So it's a kid would not, an elementary school child would not be able to bike there independently.
Yeah. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. You're on mute, Cam.
Thank you. Alistair, I saw one comment from you earlier in the chat as well regarding the paving between Jefferson and El Camino. On Jefferson between El Camino and Alameda. I think that's exactly the plan. It's repaving all the way from El Camino to Farm Hill, so to the Farm Hill breakout, and that should be going on this summer. All of the exact timing is not.
So the road and the sidewalk.
Oh, the sidewalk as well. Is that the? Sorry,
I thought you were talking about sidewalk on Jefferson.
Oh no, this is the road. This is
okay.
The road. Yeah, I don't think that there's any sidewalk plan right there. Although I would like to see that as well. That pinch point right around right around the crossing to the park is pretty. It's a very narrow sidewalk and stuff. So I'm not sure if they have plans for that as well. But this is specifically for the road.
Okay, that's great. Overdue.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions for Marina on the safe routes or any more specifics on speeding or road work? Great. Moving on. Let's see, just get my bearings here. Right. So I think we've gone through everything up to the community and civic service section. And we heard from Janelle Gibson on Healthy Cities Tutoring earlier. Now we have City Trees, as I understand, it has an upcoming planting, and Jane Taylor would like to tell us a little bit more about that upcoming initiative.
Hi, everybody. I've got my colleague Nancy Radcliffe on with me. So Nancy's going to actually start off talking. We'll keep it short because it's getting late.
Great. So I'm Nancy Radcliffe with City Trees, and we want to tell you a little bit about City Trees. We were very good, Jane. Established in the year 2000 by Jane Taylor and Jack Stevens, both residents of the Mount Carmel area. And our mission is to take care of Redwood City's urban forest. We have a very robust relationship with our Public Works Department, and we have gotten over 3,800 trees planted within Redwood City. We also have a pruning program, going back and prune the trees. So right now we are not doing any plantings. We tend to plant in the fall and winter when it's better for the trees. Right now we're doing pruning. So we're doing pruning on Saturdays, a few Saturdays, and we do what is one of my favorites is Prune and Pub. On the first Thursday evening during the summer, we prune for 2 hours and then we go to a pub and socialize together. So that is what is coming up on our agenda. what we really are hoping to get some input on is the city tree ordinance is over 30 years old. City Trees has decided to do part of the legwork to help city staff get this further up on their agendas. Right now, staff is very overwhelmed, and the tree ordinance is not a priority to them, and it is to us. We don't have, for instance, a heritage tree area where we can protect all of our oaks, or a lot of different guidance that needs to be updated. So Jane is going to put into the chat our info at City Trees. We would love any thoughts or anything the neighbors can think about for a tree ordinance. We also, if you are so inclined, would love to have help with the tree ordinance committee, which is on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday evenings at 7:30. So if anyone is very passionate about trees, we would be thrilled to have you join us. And so once again, it's info at City Trees. And any questions about this quick little overview of who we are, what we do?
Let me add that we're going to be going to the neighborhood association meetings like this and just putting ourselves out there. We're going to be also going to other type of public meetings and gatherings. And we're going to have a formal kind of like survey, like a Google survey where residents can answer some questions about their concerns about trees or about what information that they want to learn about trees. So that's coming.
Right. So Alistair, I see you still have your hand up. Is that from the traffic calming, or is that about trees?
Well, I do have a question about trees getting pruned. I don't know if in terms of, I've made a request through my RWC in terms of trees outside my house, public trees that need to be pruned. One limb fell off and landed on a car and on a sidewalk in the recent windstorms. And I'm not getting anything back from the city. I guess I'm in a queue, but it's a concern.
Okay, so City Trees, the pruning we do is we don't do anything above 14 feet. We keep our feet on the ground. So if they're larger trees, that would not be us. It would definitely be the city. And
They had a windstorm caused a lot of problems. So yeah, you're probably in a queue.
Yeah, you're probably in a queue. But Alistair, if you would put your contact information in chat, or if you want to email us to info@citytrees.org, we'll follow you.
Thank you.
Adrian, how are you? Good to see you.
Jane, I remember being on an ad hoc, being appointed to an ad hoc tree, I want to call it a committee panel. I want to say in the early 2000s, I'm guessing now. I think you might have been a member, but it seems like my recollection is that, we had meetings on a regular basis in the Red Morton area, and at the conclusion, it was sort of an ad hoc committee, but at the conclusion, as I recall, we developed as a group a list of recommendations, regarding trunk diameters and pruning rules and things of that nature, just sort of good practice guidelines and so on that we had developed as a team. And those, I remember council discussed those. And what I'm wondering is that, Nancy just mentioned the ordinance hasn't been updated for, I think she said 20, 30 years. My recollection was that maybe I'm wrong, but
but let me, let me confirm that, Adrian, we served on the tree task force together, and it was 2006. And we developed, this was a major, big sort of, we were appointed by city council members, those are 20 of us, and we developed recommendations that went to city council and were approved, and basically didn't go anywhere. Our leader, Gordon Mann, left the city. It just was, the hot potato that got tossed to the next tree manager. And our tree ordinances are almost 50 years old. 1973 is what is on the books if you go into our ordinances. And that's why we're like, okay, city trees, we're just going to drag this back up and start from grassroots and see if we can kickstart and get this going again. So we have the recommendations that we created and were approved by City Council. In our bi-monthly evening meetings, Gordon Mann zoomed in with us from Sacramento or wherever he lives now, and had some helpful suggestions. So basically where we're at now is we want to start hearing from residents and kind of compile concerns from residents, or what you're passionate about, that you care about the tree in front of your house and it needs to be pruned. How do you do it? The branch fell, what do you do? Who do you call? Or you've got this giant ancient oak and you want to make sure it lives as long as it can. So we're gonna change course. Instead of knocking on the city's doors, we're gonna just
We're going to do as much groundwork as we can to get it ready for city staff. So
thank you for that reminder and clarification. I'm very disappointed to hear that. I guess I had forgotten or was just ignorant of the fact that all our work came to naught, because I know that it was a big effort. We spent a lot of time on it, and hopefully there's some of those pieces can be carried forward. Maybe, obviously you want to refresh and as you mentioned, kind of get the temperature of what people are thinking nowadays. That was coming up on about 15 years ago, but that's really disappointing to hear. So thanks for that update.
Yeah, and I think, this might be like, there's still some of us out there like you that were on that tree task force. So maybe we kind of look around and see who's still out there. And
so Adrian, maybe you want to join our task force and help us out.
Maybe. Jane got me into the census. That turned into quite an operation.
That was from this Mount Carmel Neighborhood Association meeting.
That's right. I got infected over there and wound up getting up in the Sierra foothills and people shooting at me, and it was good fun.
I didn't have anything that scary.
Wow. Sounds awesome.
Hey, another quick question for Jane and Nancy. To Firefighter Golden's comments earlier about clearing flammable material around eaves and roof lines and things like that. Do you guys advise on how to prune trees, both for the health of the tree and optimize for fire safety? Is that part of the program?
Honestly, Cameron, when the branches are that high, it's kind of hard to do yourself. It's not a great home project. So I would suggest that you get a certified arborist to help you with that. Because it'll depend on the species and how it is. And, something like oaks, you want to trim them back so they don't get a heavy load at the end of the branches, but there's the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. So I would suggest a certified arborist. So sorry about that.
Thanks.
City Trees does have an annual pruning seminar. So that is to teach homeowners how to prune their young trees, or to get you involved in our City Trees pruning crew.
Right, but that will not be until next February. So that's not gonna help us now, but
Got it.
Great to care trees. A healthy tree is a great thing. Yeah. So any other questions? Okay, so Cameron, I also wanted to throw out to your Mount Carmel Neighborhood Association that I'm chair of the Redwood City Planning Commission. So if anyone has questions, they are always welcome to email me at my city email, which is nradcliffe@redwoodcity.org. So I know a lot of important issues are coming up. ADUs will once again be coming up at the end of June for us. So, and I know that's really important to this neighborhood. So anyone who has any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That's a wonderful offer.
Anytime.
Gwen, is that a hand up for a comment? Go ahead.
I just wanted to support Nancy and Jane in the work with City Trees and the oaks and all the wonderful heritage trees we have. I wanted to bring to your attention, Cameron, you asked about, I guess I can hold it here, but Palo Alto, this was kind of what we're hoping to provide for Redwood City is they have Palo Alto has a tree maintenance, it's called a tree technical manual. So it has everything any homeowner would need. It's about 130 pages and it's quite robust and professional. So that's kind of what we're aiming for with Redwood City, but you can go to Palo Alto and find information, really good, high quality information there.
Thank you very much. That sounds terrific. Alistair, you still have a hand raised there as well.
My bad, sorry.
No problem.
No worries.
Okay, I know we're butting up against time here, so if people need to drop off, that's fine, but I think we only have about maybe 5 to 10 minutes left, and I can riff through some of this stuff pretty quickly. Let's see, so volunteer opportunities. Amanda put this in the chat as well, but the big board commission push that they're making right now is an 11-person redistricting advisory committee that's taking applications right now through June 6th, I believe. And as you know, the district elections, we moved to a district election system in the city 2 years ago. That was prior to having, I mean, that was based on 2010 census data. And so obviously we've just gone through the new census. The early preliminary data has been released, and the more detailed information is supposed to be released here in the fall, I believe, late summer, early fall. And so the advisory committee will be looking at, it's an independent body that will be looking at redrawing those district representation maps. And so each neighborhood, well, I shouldn't say each neighborhood. In fact, right now, I think we have representation from 2 different city council districts here in what our neighborhood boundary is, specifically, roughly Whipple to Jefferson and El Camino to Myrtle. So those 60 square blocks plus, the Sequoia district offices and Sequoia High School, those have been split into some sort of cookie cutter type pieces. And it's based on demographics and population densities of different neighborhoods and areas, trying to draw reasonably, there'll still be 7 boundaries, and they will have the redistricting process will attempt to achieve the same thing, but they want the council itself to be removed from that process as much as possible. So please do take a look, especially if you have background in any kind of demography work or data analytics or mapping, or just enjoy the election process and that kind of thing. Please do take a look at joining that committee. They do need applicants. They do need volunteers, folks to help out with that. And then there's another opening for the Housing and Human Concerns Committee. Also, applications due midnight of or 11:59 on June 6th. So there are always opportunities for these city committees that are going on. Keep an ear out for those specifically. So another plug for the Safe Routes to School, have some of these survey volunteers and participants, folks who can help with that route mapping and things. And Marina will continue to be the point person for our neighborhood in particular on Safe Routes to School, and will update us with specific volunteer opportunities. There is this past week, actually I think it's going on tomorrow, is that right? There's a survey or audit going on, a walking audit for one of the other neighborhoods And I believe they're going to start doing the same thing for our neighborhood in the not too distant future. So look out for opportunities there. And then the last piece here, let me just make sure that they're not going to join us tonight, but last piece here is our local business spotlight. And I am very excited to talk a little bit more about the new professional soccer team or pair of teams that's coming to Redwood City and specifically to our neighborhood. They're going to make their home field, Terramere Field at Sequoia High, the football stadium there. And it's going to be, they're going to have both a women's team and a men's team. And it's run by a number of local people who are involved in soccer and have been involved in soccer here in Redwood City for a long time. The Juventus program, the guy who leads that, Anders, is the president of the team, and then they have one of their other executives is the guy who runs the Police Athletic League here in Redwood City, on the peninsula, and together with some other partners, they're bringing this tier 3 professional team or pairing of teams to the Bay Area and specifically to our neighborhood. So I had a chance to sit down with them earlier this week. Both Chuck Riley and I spoke to them about upcoming schedules and their how they expect to interact with the neighborhood and what they hope to bring, not just to the greater area. I think this will be the only professional women's team in the larger Bay Area, and so they're pretty excited specifically for that piece of it and to highlight a number of local players who have come up through youth soccer organizations here. And so they're obviously very aware and concerned about how they come into our neighborhood, what that does to traffic and parking, and especially on game days. The general plan right now is that they're going to host a series of friendly matches this summer. I think they have they're scheduling 7 matches, 5 of which are likely to be here at their home field, and they'll play double headers on Saturday. So the women's team will go first, followed by the men's team. The games are supposed to be over by 8 p.m. I think, in fact, earlier than that, potentially to have give people a chance to clear out by 8 p.m. They partnered with the city and Caltrain in terms of parking. So they're not going to have on-site parking at the high school except for team-specific parking and disabled parking will be available there. But the majority of the parking will be down at the Caltrain lot, and they'll have shuttles that bring people back and forth, along with increased police and traffic presence to help facilitate that. So the stadium holds 3,000 people. It's a small outfit in the terms of the professional sports world, but it's still, I think they're hoping to get a pretty significant following and bring a lot of people in. So in terms of the schedule for this summer, their first friendly is scheduled here at Sequoia on June 6th. And that's tentative. They haven't released that schedule yet, but there is looking very likely that will go forward. And I think there will still be restrictions on the number of fans that they can bring in while we're in yellow tier restrictions here. And they're working with the state and county to figure out exactly how they provide a safe environment for everyone. They would very much like to do a presentation at one of our meetings in the future and engage with us both for promotional aspects and just get people involved. I think they're really they seem to be very genuine in trying to connect youth soccer in the area to this specific team that they've got. So I have contact information for them, and they've asked to share that with you all that I can pass along. But if there are any questions in the meantime, I'm happy to answer that. Chuck, are you on right now? Did you have anything to add? No Chuck right now. Okay, yeah, any questions? Adrian, I see hand raised, go ahead.
Yeah, this might be a question for Chuck if he's part of this effort. I'm the vice chair of the Caltrain Citizens Advisory Committee, and I'm curious, my ears perked up when you said the Caltrain lot would be used. Is this something that's been worked out with Caltrain staff? Is there some kind of an agreement or reimbursement or whatever? Caltrain's always looking to monetize its parking, so, and you know, with the pandemic ridership collapse and revenue collapse, I'm sure they would be interested in monetizing some kind of parking arrangement. So I'm just curious if you're aware, or if you don't know, that's fine too. But
I don't know if the ink is dry on the contract yet, but it sounds like they are working directly with Caltrain to make that happen.
Okay, well, I'll ask Caltrain staff more about it and find out details.
Great,
Thanks.
Yep. Other questions on the soccer stuff? No, okay, great. Let's see. And then just a plug for our neighborhood business directory initiative. So we don't really have a good sense right now of all of the local businesses, organizations, nonprofits that reside here within the boundaries of our neighborhood organization association. So the first thing that we're trying to do is just get a listing of who is an active business here. The city doesn't have good data on that either, and it's something that we can share with them. And so over the next month or so, we'll be putting together just a simple spreadsheet that has business names, contacts, and inviting them specifically to engage more with the neighborhood association and figure out how we can help support them. I mean, there are a lot of small family practices, shops, things like that that are along that El Camino west side. I guess the southbound side of El Camino that have there's a local family-owned gym that's down there. That a number of folks who are technically within our boundaries, and it would be great to be able to engage with them more. So if anybody would like to help with that initiative, please reach out to me or Chuck, and we'd love your help on that project. Finally, the Mount Carmel neighborhood history and highlights. We got a post from Jennifer Stafford, Spatorno Stafford in our Facebook group a month or so ago, talking about some of the personal history behind Stafford Park. And it was really a fantastic post, and we'd like to have a lot more of that. I think one of the things I'd really like to see is there's so much rich history here with our neighborhood in particular, and we'd love to have more personalized stories about this neighborhood. And so if there's someone who would like to coordinate some of that, that would be fantastic help that we could have. And I sort of envision having in these quarterly meetings, having someone do a quick 5-minute presentation, perhaps with some pictures or slides or something like that, to highlight our specific history story. So if you're interested in that, please reach out.
Yeah, Cam, I would be interested in doing that.
Yeah, okay, fantastic.
I'm just like an amateur, but and I actually sort of did a little pilot walking tour with some of the women's club members, and it was fun. So I'd like to do that again and have a sidekick.
Phenomenal. That sounds great. Okay, we'll connect. Thank you. And then Alistair, did you want to say anything more about the newsletter?
Yeah, sure. I mean, just on that previous thing we were just talking about, I don't know if anyone's aware of it, but there's a great newsletter that's published each week called Walking Redwood City. And it's written by someone somewhere in the area. I don't know exactly where he is, but he takes great, does great walks, great photos, and does actually touch a little bit on the history. So he could be someone interesting to invite to one of these events to talk a little bit about his walking experiences and the history that he walks through sometimes. And I'll be up for getting him involved if you guys don't know him already. But on the note of calendars, we really want to highlight things that are happening in our neighborhood and things that you can walk to, that you might be interested in going to. But it's hard to, really collate all that information ourselves. So if you know of things, you're aware of things, you've come across a flyer for something, just drop it into an email to me and I'll do the rest. And it can be just limited information at that, but I really need, everyone's kind of feelers of things that are happening out there. I'm actually going to add something to this calendar. On June 27th, we're going to have a tennis tournament at Sequoia High School that I'm organizing, which will have junior players playing at it. So that's a Sunday, June 27th. So those kinds of things, just like the city council meeting and just like, a community meeting, are things that we want to include in here. Ideally, they're in Mount Carmel, but they can be in other parts that, where there's very useful things that are being provided perhaps by the city. Like we highlighted a paper shredding service that was being provided by the city one time. So ideally, it's just a very useful resource for you to get information about what's happening in the neighborhood. But if you know of things, let me know.
I just wanted to
go ahead, Adrian.
Make a quick comment. That's Greg Wilson. He's the blogger that does Walking Redwood City. And I'm just looking, he lives on Hopkins, and it might be just at the edge of Mount Carmel, but certainly, as far as I'm concerned, can be an honorary Mount Carmel citizen if he's just outside of it. I can't quite tell. But his blog is excellent. I've been reading it for years. And it's really a passion of his to do this. He's a retired tech guy and pretty low key guy. I've met him a couple times, but I think it'd be neat to have him, if he's willing, as a guest on one of our meetings.
Yeah, that'd be really fun, I think.
Very cool. We'll Adrian, I'll reach out and maybe you can pass along or make a virtual connection or something. Then we'll get in touch.
Sure, be happy to.
All right, I think that just about does it. There's a few things on the calendar here that you guys can take a look at. Next week is the last week for Sequoia High Athletics. As many of you know, I'm a volunteer coach with a baseball program, and they're having a great season. I think there's one more home game next week that fans are welcome to come out to.
Who are they playing?
I have to check my Max Prep schedule here again. They've got the JV. This schedule is all messed up, but they play Mills this week. Although I think that game is away. Terra Nova is next week, and their home game is on Thursday at 5:30. Should be the last game of this season. Fantastic senior campaign from those kids, so it'll be senior day. There's been some. I mean, they're one of the top teams in the region, and they should have, in any normal year where they were allowed to go to CCS, they would, be contenders for that. It's still uncertain right now whether they will be allowed to participate in postseason stuff. So anyway, if anybody wants to come out and check out just a couple innings, it should be a good one. That's it for our agenda items. Does anybody have any comments, questions, things to add?
I just want to say thank you very much, you guys. You're doing some awesome community building in our neighborhood, and it's a lot of work, and it's very interesting, and thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thanks.
I wish we need to pull more people in, but
some more outreach and recruiting. We need some more people, expand the network, and have some people come out to these and just get involved. So if you know people or are part of, cross pollination, between other groups is really useful, I think. So we'll continue beating the pavement and trying to get some more people out. All right. Thank you guys so much. Sorry we went over here, but I really appreciate all the time and comments. And we'll be in touch.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
All right, thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Night. Bye-bye.